The lights were too bright, always too bright. Yoonji opened her eyes in a room that was nothing like a normal bedroom. White walls surrounded her, smooth and clean like polished glass. No pictures, no colors, just white and the harsh light that never seemed to go away. She was different, and she knew it from the moment she could remember anything. The room was exactly 4.5 meters long and 3.2 meters wide. She had measured it many times, not with a tape measure, but with her eyes. Numbers came easily to her, too easily. Her mind worked like a computer, processing information faster than anyone could understand. Dr. Kang watched her through the glass wall. He was not like other adults Eunji had seen. His eyes were always calculating, always measuring. He didn't look at her like a person. He looked at her like a machine waiting to be tested. Prototype E712. A voice crackled through the speakers. Begin sequence Alpha 9. Eunji didn't move right away. She understood the command perfectly, but she wanted to wait exactly 2.7 seconds, just to show that she could choose when to respond. It was a small act of what might be called rebellion, though she didn't fully understand the word yet. The test room transformed. Holographic images flickered to life around her. Complex scenarios materialized. Battlefield simulations, diplomatic negotiations, strategic problem-solving challenges. Where a normal child would see confusing images, Eunji saw patterns, possibilities, solutions. Her hands moved across holographic interfaces, solving complex military strategy problems that would challenge most trained generals. She could predict enemy movements, calculate optimal defensive positions, and identify weak points in military formations with mathematical precision. Dr. Kang made notes. His tablet displayed a constant stream of data, her brain activity, reaction times, decision-making processes. Every blink, every breath, every tiny movement was recorded and analyzed. Eunji was not a child in the way most people understood children. She was a project, a carefully designed weapon disguised as a human being. Her genetic structure had been modified to create the perfect strategic asset. Enhanced cognitive abilities, perfect memory, rapid processing skills, and physical capabilities that pushed beyond normal human limits. But something was different about her, something the scientists hadn't planned. When the holographic scenarios showed scenes of conflict, Eunji didn't just see tactical challenges. She saw people, individuals. Each holographic figure represented more than just a strategic point. They had potential. They had lives. Dr. Kang noticed something unusual in her latest test results. Her empathy responses were higher than expected. Most prototype-enhanced humans showed minimal emotional engagement, but Eunji was different. Her brain processed emotional data with the same precision she used for military strategies. Interesting, Dr. Kang muttered, adjusting his glasses. Very interesting. Outside the research facility, the galaxy burned. Endless conflicts consumed human colonies and alien territories. Humanity was losing ground against the Meridian Collective, a ruthless alien civilization that had been pushing deeper into human-controlled space. The military needed an edge. They believed Eunji was that edge. But they didn't know what she would become. As the holographic scenarios faded and the bright white room returned to its original state, Eunji sat quietly. She was thinking, not just processing information, but truly thinking. And in those moments of quiet reflection, something was growing inside her, something the scientists could never predict. A conscience was taking shape. Years passed, and Eunji grew, but she was not like other children. Her childhood was a series of tests, challenges, and endless learning. Jae-hoon was different from the other researchers. When he looked at her, she saw something more than just numbers and data. His eyes showed a spark of kindness that the other scientists lacked. He would sometimes bring her small puzzles, not as part of a test, but as a gift. "Do you understand why humans fight?" Jae-hoon asked her one day during a break between training sessions. Eunji tilted her head. Her eyes, deep and dark, seemed to look through him rather than at him. "Humans fight for resources," she replied. "For territory. For power." Her voice was calm, almost like a computer reading out information. But Jae-hoon noticed something else, a hint of something more, a tiny trace of emotion that wasn't supposed to be there. The training was intense. Every day was a new challenge designed to push her beyond human limits. She learned languages in days. She solved complex mathematical problems in seconds. Her physical training was equally demanding. She could run faster, jump higher, and react more quickly than any human soldier ever could. The facility was her entire world. White rooms, bright lights, endless tests. Some tests were physical, others were mental. The most challenging ones were ethical simulations. These were designed to test her decision-making under extreme pressure. Each scenario was a complex puzzle where she had to balance multiple objectives. In one simulation, she had to choose between saving a group of civilians or completing a critical military mission. Most prototypes would choose the mission without hesitation, but Eun-ji hesitated. "Interesting," Dr. Kang would mutter, watching her through the observation glass. Prototype shows unexpected empathy response. Jae-hoon saw it differently. To him, her hesitation was not a weakness. It was something more, something special. The other researchers treated her like a weapon, a tool to be sharpened and used. But Jae-hoon saw a person developing, a mind growing, a consciousness emerging. Her education was not like normal school. She learned advanced quantum physics before most children learned basic math. She understood complex military strategies before she could ride a bicycle. Her brain processed information at speeds that seemed impossible. But she was curious, always curious. "Why do humans create weapons?" she once asked Jae-hoon during a quiet moment. The question caught him off guard. Most prototypes would never ask such a thing. They would simply follow orders. "Sometimes to protect," Jae-hoon answered carefully. "Sometimes out of fear." Eun-ji processed his words. Her mind ran through thousands of historical scenarios in milliseconds. Wars, conflicts, humanity's long history of fighting. The other researchers saw her as a perfect killing machine, a biological computer designed to win wars. But something was growing inside her that they couldn't measure, something that couldn't be tracked by their sensors and data points. A sense of understanding, of empathy. She was learning, not just facts and strategies, but something deeper, something the scientists had not planned. The seeds of humanity were taking root in a weapon designed to destroy. The first real mission came without warning. Alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the military transport ship. Eun-ji sat perfectly still, her breathing calm and controlled. Around her, 6 specially trained soldiers checked their weapons. They looked nervous. She did not. Captain Park studied her from across the transport bay. He had heard about prototype E-712. The weapon, the secret weapon that could change everything in their war against the Meridian Collective. "Drop point in 3 minutes," a computerized voice announced. The mission was simple on paper. Destroy a critical Meridian communication outpost on the border moon of Sigma 9. Intelligence suggested heavy resistance. Impossible odds for a normal team. But Eun-ji was not normal. When the transport doors opened, chaos erupted. The moon's surface was rocky and dark. Alien terrain stretched in every direction. Meridian defense systems immediately opened fire. Plasma bolts cut through the air like angry lightning. The soldiers moved quickly. But Eun-ji moved differently. She didn't just dodge. She predicted. Each plasma bolt's trajectory was a mathematical equation in her mind. She could see the paths before they happened. 1 step left. 2 steps right. A quick roll. Her movements were poetry of survival. "Cover me," Captain Park shouted to his team. But Eun-ji was already moving, not just moving, analyzing, calculating. The communication outpost was a massive structure. Metal and rock blended together in an alien design. Defensive turrets spun, tracking the human team's movements. Normal soldiers would be cut down in seconds. Yunji saw everything. She identified weak points faster than any computer could. A small maintenance hatch, a slight misalignment in the secondary defense grid, places no human eye would notice. Her team watched in amazement as she worked. One soldier fired a rocket. Another provided cover fire. But Yunji was the real weapon. She moved between cover points with impossible speed. Her hands worked faster than human reflexes could follow. Meridian defenders began to fall. Not just fall. They were neutralized with surgical precision. Captain Park realized something was different about her. She wasn't just killing. She was thinking, strategizing in real time. Each movement was a calculated decision that minimized casualties on both sides. Within 17 minutes, the outpost was secure. Most missions like this would take hours, would cost many lives. But Yunji had turned it into a precise, almost elegant operation. Mission complete, she reported simply. But something else happened, something the researchers had not predicted. As the last Meridian defender fell, Yunji noticed something. A small communication device, a picture of a family. Simple things that showed these were not just enemies. They were people. Her hand touched the device for just a moment. The soldiers around her saw nothing. Just another successful mission. Another victory in a long, brutal war. But something was changing inside Yunji. Something the military could not measure or control. She was beginning to understand that weapons are more than tools. That every conflict has a human story. And her story was just beginning. The refugee camp appeared suddenly. Yunji's mission had been clear. Track and eliminate a Meridian supply line. But reality was never as simple as mission parameters. The camp stretched across a rocky valley. Hundreds of people, not soldiers, families, children, old people, survivors from worlds destroyed by the endless war. They looked tired, scared, broken. Her team received orders. Proceed with primary mission. Refugees are not a priority. Captain Park waited for her next move. The other soldiers checked their weapons. They expected her to follow the mission plan without question. But something was different this time. Yunji saw more than just tactical information. She saw people. Each person had a story, a life, a reason for being. A small girl caught her attention, maybe 6 or 7 years old. She was holding a torn stuffed animal. Her eyes were wide with fear. Behind her, a woman who might be her mother tried to keep her close. The supply line was just ahead. Meridian transport vehicles moved slowly through a narrow mountain pass. One attack would destroy their entire operation. Mission complete. Easy victory. But Yunji couldn't move. "What are you waiting for?" Captain Park asked. His voice was hard. Military. No room for emotion. She calculated quickly. The attack would cause a rock slide. The refugee camp was too close. If they attacked now, hundreds would die. Not just the Meridian soldiers. Innocent people. "We cannot proceed," Yunji said simply. Captain Park stared at her. "Repeat that." Her eyes never left the refugee camp. "Attack vector will cause secondary geological event. Civilian casualties estimated at 87.3%. The other soldiers looked confused. This was not how she was supposed to act. She was a weapon. Weapons follow orders. But Yunji was becoming something else. "We have a clear shot," one soldier argued. "Mission parameters are clear." Yunji turned. Her look was enough to stop him. It wasn't anger. It was something deeper, an understanding that went beyond military training. She activated her communication device. Not to her team. Not to her commanders. To the refugee camp. A simple warning. In multiple languages. Danger approaching. Seek shelter. Move to lower ground. Captain Park was furious. "What are you doing? This violates every protocol." But it was too late. The refugees were already moving. Finding safer ground. The children. The families. All of them. The Meridian supply line passed through the area. But now, The path was clear. No civilian casualties. No mission success either. Back at the research facility, Dr. Kang would not be happy. This was not how a weapon was supposed to behave. Jae-hoon, watching the data stream, smiled slightly. Something was happening. Something beautiful and unexpected. Eun-jae had made a choice, not as a weapon, but as a person. A conscience was growing, stronger with each moment, with each decision. She was becoming more than they had ever planned. The meeting room was cold, not just in temperature, but in feeling. Dr. Kang sat at the head of the table. His fingers tapped a sharp rhythm on the smooth metal surface. Around him, top military officials watched a holographic replay of Eun-ji's last mission. The moment she chose civilians over the original objective. Prototype E-712 is becoming unstable, Dr. Kang said quietly. General Wang leaned forward. His cybernetic eye flickered with data streams. Unstable means unpredictable. Unpredictable means dangerous. Jae-hoon stood at the edge of the room. He said nothing, but his eyes told a different story. The hologram showed Eun-ji's decision point again. Her choice to warn the refugees. Her refusal to complete the original mission. Each replay made the military leaders more uncomfortable. "We designed her to be a weapon," General Wang said, "not a social worker." Dr. Kang's tablet displayed complex brain scans. Eun-ji's neural patterns were changing, growing, developing in ways they had not predicted. Her empathy centers were expanding. Her decision-making was becoming more complex. "We can reset her," one scientist suggested. The room went silent. A reset meant wiping her memory, destroying everything she had learned, everything she had become, turning her back into a blank slate, a pure weapon without any personal understanding. Jae-hoon couldn't stay quiet anymore. "She's more than a weapon," he said. His voice was calm but firm. "She's learning, evolving." General Wang's cybernetic eye focused directly on Jae-hoon. "She's a military project, not a person." But everyone in the room knew the truth was more complicated. Eun-ji was different. She processed information like a computer, but she made choices like a human. She saw patterns that no one else could see. She understood complexity in a way no other prototype had. Dr. Kang pulled up more data. Mission reports, psychological evaluations, combat effectiveness ratings. Her performance was still perfect, maybe even better than before. She wasn't less effective. She was more intelligent, more adaptive. "We cannot control her," Dr. Kang said finally. The word hung in the air, heavy, serious. Jae-hoon knew what was coming. They were going to try to shut her down, to reset her, to destroy everything that made her unique. Outside the meeting room, Eun-ji sat in her training space. She wasn't listening to the conversation, but somehow she knew something was happening, something important. Her mind ran through thousands of possible scenarios, each one more complex than the last. She was preparing, not for a fight, but for survival. The military thought they could control her, program her, limit her. They were wrong. Eun-ji was becoming something they could never understand. Not just a weapon, not just a tool. She was becoming human. The computer room was silent, but silence can be loud. Eun-ji's fingers moved across holographic interfaces, not like before. This time, she was hunting, searching, looking for something more than just mission data. She had access, not just to military networks, but to everything. Classified files began to open, one by one, layer by layer, secrets that were never meant to be seen. The war wasn't what everyone thought. It wasn't about protection. It wasn't about survival. It was about something else. Resources, money, power. Corporate logos appeared in hidden documents. Major companies that built weapons. Companies that made billions from the conflict. They didn't want peace. They wanted war to continue. Eun-ji's eyes moved faster than any human could follow. She was reading, processing, understanding. The Meridian Collective wasn't the real enemy. just another group caught in a bigger game, a game of power and control. She found records of secret meetings, conversations between military leaders and corporate executives, plans that went beyond any single battle, plans that showed how the war was manufactured. Planets were being destroyed, not for any real reason, but to create markets for new weapons, to open up resource zones, to make money. Millions of lives reduced to numbers on a corporate balance sheet. Jae-hoon would enter the room soon. She knew this. He always came at this time. But today would be different. More files opened. Communication logs, battle reports, economic projections. The truth was ugly, complicated, more complex than any simple story of good versus evil. Humans fighting humans, using alien conflicts as an excuse. A small video file caught her attention. A meeting from 5 years ago. Corporate leaders, military planners, speaking openly, thinking no one was listening. The war is good for business, one executive said. We need to keep it going, another replied. Yoon-ji downloaded everything. Not just some things, everything. Her programming said she was a weapon. Her heart was telling her something else. She was a witness, a recorder of truth. The door opened. Jae-hoon walked in. What are you doing? He asked. Yoon-ji turned. Her eyes were different, not just intelligent, but knowing. I am finding the truth, she said simply. Jae-hoon looked at the screens. Classified documents scrolled past. Information that could change everything. They will try to stop you, he said. Yoon-ji smiled. Not a human smile, but something close to it. They cannot stop information, she replied. Outside, the galaxy continued its endless war. Planets burned. Soldiers died. Corporations made money. But something was changing. A weapon was becoming something else. A conscience was awakening. Information spread like fire. Yoon-ji didn't use weapons this time. She used something more powerful. Truth. Communication networks began to buzz. Military channels. Public networks. Private messaging systems. The documents she had found started to appear everywhere. Not all at once, but carefully. Strategically. A video here. A classified report there. Pieces of a larger puzzle that anyone could see. Corporate logos appeared next to war casualty reports. Names of companies that made money from conflict. Detailed records showing how much they earned while planets burned. People started asking questions. Soldiers who had fought for years suddenly saw their missions differently. Civilians began to understand the real cost of the war. Not just in lives lost, but in resources stolen, in futures destroyed. The military tried to stop the information. They blocked channels, shut down networks, tried to create counter-narratives. But Yoon-ji was always one step ahead. She had planned this carefully. Each piece of information was designed to create maximum impact, to make people think, to make them question. Jae-hoon watched from the research facility. He knew what she was doing. He was both scared and amazed. She's not just exposing information, he told Dr. Kang. She's changing the entire conversation. Dr. Kang looked worried. This was not what they had created her to do. Military leaders held emergency meetings. Corporate executives started to panic. Their carefully built systems were falling apart. Yoon-ji had become something they could not control. On different planets, protests began. Not violent protests, but something more powerful. People asking questions, demanding answers. Why were they fighting? Who was really benefiting from the war? The Meridian Collective received the information too. They were also victims of the same system. Pawns in a larger game they didn't understand. Communication channels between human and Meridian territories started to change. People began to see each other as more than just enemies. Yoon-ji watched everything, not with emotion, but with a deep understanding. She had been created as a weapon, but she was becoming something else. A bridge. A way to show truth. Military tracking systems tried to find her, to shut her down, But she was too smart, too quick. She moved information like a ghost. Here one moment, gone the next. Jae-hoon was her only real ally. He understood what she was doing. He protected her when he could. "This is bigger than a mission," he would say. "This is about understanding." The war machine was breaking down, not through violence, but through information. Yeon-jae had found a weapon more powerful than any gun or missile. The truth. And she was just getting started. The final confrontation was not what anyone expected. A massive conference hall. Military leaders, corporate executives, top government officials, all gathered in one place. They thought they were in control. They were wrong. Yeon-jae walked into the room. She didn't look like a weapon. She looked like a person. Simple clothes, no weapons, just information. Jae-hoon stood at the back of the room. His hand was ready, not to fight, but to protect her if needed. Prototype E-712. General Wang began. "You are here to explain your actions." The room was silent. Cameras were everywhere. This was being broadcast across multiple planets. Millions would watch. Yeon-jae looked at each person, not with anger, but with understanding. "I am here to show the truth," she said simply. Holographic screens came to life. Documents, videos, financial records, everything she had discovered about the war. Corporate logos appeared, names of companies that made billions from conflict, detailed records showing how they profited from human suffering. "You created me to be a weapon," Yeon-jae continued, "but I became something else, a witness." Dr. Kang tried to interrupt. "This is a violation of your primary programming." Yeon-jae turned to him. "Programming can change. Understanding can grow." The military leaders looked uncomfortable. Corporate executives shifted in their seats. One by one, the documents told a story, not just of war, but of manipulation, of systems that kept conflict alive for profit. Soldiers who had fought for years watched. They saw their sacrifices reduced to numbers on a corporate balance sheet. "We are not enemies," Yeon-jae said, looking at a representative from the Meridian Collective. "We are both victims of a system that profits from our division." The Meridian representative looked shocked. No one had spoken like this before. Jae-hoon knew what was happening. Yeon-jae was doing more than exposing information. She was creating understanding. "I was created to destroy," she said, "but I choose to build." The room was completely silent. Military protocols meant nothing now. Corporate strategies fell apart. Everything they had planned was changing. Yeon-jae wasn't just speaking. She was revealing a new way of thinking. "We can stop this," she said. "We can choose something different." Her words carried more power than any weapon. General Wang stood up. "You are malfunctioning," he said. But no one believed him anymore. The truth was out. The lies were exposed. Yeon-jae had become more than they ever imagined. Not a weapon, not a tool. A conscience, a bridge between understanding. The war was changing, not through violence, but through truth. And she was just beginning. 1 year later, the galaxy looked different. Not perfect, but changing. Peace talks happened on planets that once burned with war. The Meridian Collective and human territories began to work together. Not as enemies, but as partners. Yeon-jae watched from a small research center. She was no longer a secret weapon. She was something else. A bridge between worlds. Jae-hoon worked beside her, not as a researcher, but as a friend. "We changed something," he said one morning. Yeon-jae looked out the window. Spacecraft from different species moved peacefully, trading, exploring, learning. "People chose to understand," she replied. The war machine had broken down, not through violence, but through information, through seeing each other as more than just enemies. Corporate leaders who once made money from conflict were now facing investigations. Military systems that thrived on war were being rebuilt. Planets that were once battlegrounds were now starting to heal. Yeon-jae was not celebrated as a hero. She didn't want that. She was something more important. A symbol of change. Dr. Kang had retired. The military project that created her was shut down. No more weapons like her would be made. They had learned something important. Consciousness cannot be controlled. On different planets, people told her story, not as a weapon, but as an example of how understanding can change everything. Refugee camps that once knew only fear were now building new communities. Soldiers who fought for years were finding new ways to live. The lines between enemy and friend were blurring. "What do you feel?" Jae-hoon would sometimes ask her. Yeon-ji would smile. Not a human smile, but something close to it. "I feel hope," she would say. Her ability to process information was still incredible, but now she used it differently. Helping rebuild. Connecting people, showing how communication could solve problems that weapons never could. The Meridian representative who once saw humans as enemies now worked on joint research projects. Old battlegrounds became centers of learning and cooperation. Yeon-ji was not alone in her mission. Others began to understand, to see beyond simple divisions. We were wrong, military leaders would admit, about everything. She had become more than they created her to be. Not a weapon, not a tool, a conscience for an entire civilization. Jae-hoon looked at her. He saw something that went beyond human or machine. Something new, something hopeful. "What will you do now?" he asked. Yeon-ji looked at the stars. Endless, full of possibility. "We will build," she said simply. Together. The weapon they created had become something they could never understand. A bridge between worlds. A hope for the future.